Mayor Winfield,
Here.
Mayor Murphy,
Here.
Chairman Hernandez,
Here.
General Maxwell, Mayor Post,
Here.
Mayor Romero,
Here.
and Mayor Valenzuela.
Here.
And I thought I saw Supervisor Hines. He's here. Okay.
Okay, so we have all board members present with the exception of board member Jose. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And board member Hines is here, but not here right now.
I'm told that board member Hines is here, but not present at the moment. The next item on the agenda is call to audience. Mr. Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have quite a number of speakers today. We'll start with the call-in caller. Just a reminder for everybody, speakers are limited to a 3-minute oral presentation and may submit written comments of any length to the board's files. Call to the audience is limited to 30 minutes. Individual board members may respond to criticism made by those individuals who have addressed the board. However, the board will not discuss or take action on a matter raised during a call to the audience that is not already on the agenda. All right, we will go to the phone. Thank you, caller. Are you there?
I am.
Excellent. You are now live with the RTA board. Please start your comment by stating your name for the record. After that, you will have 3 minutes to address the RTA board. At the 2-minute mark, I will politely cut in and request that you wrap up your comments. You may now proceed with your comments, starting with your name.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. My name is Georgia Duncan. I'm a native Tucsonan, and I have lived my entire life in the greater Tucson metro area. And I've been a resident in Marana since 2007. Since the establishment of the RTA in 2004 and receiving voter-approved funding in 2006, I've witnessed the many benefits to our community from the numerous RTA projects. We need to continue building and improving roads in all areas of the community, protecting animals with wildlife crossings, and maintain transportation options for the elderly and our disabled communities. I strongly urge all of you to focus on the needs of the region as a whole by getting a new 20-year RTA Next plan out to the voters this year. Regional transportation funding is critical to economic growth of Tucson, Sahuarita, Marana, Oro Valley, and the rest of Pima County. Thank you for your time and consideration, and thank you for all that you do in service to the public.
Thank you so much, caller. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, we'll move to our in-person speakers. First up on the cards, I have John Caruth. And again, please start your comments with your name and I'll let you know at the 2-minute mark.
Great, thank you. Dear members of the RTA board, it's my honor to be here with you today and thank you for your time.
Sorry, one more time.
Let's try that again. Dear RTA board, thank you for your time. My name is John Caruth. It's my honor to serve our community as superintendent of schools of the Vail Unified School District. While I'm a native Tucsonan, Vail has been both my home and my work community for the past 30 years. From that vantage point, I hope that my comments will provide a unique perspective on the transportation needs of Southeast Pima County. For perspective, the Vail Unified School District takes up most of Southeast Pima County, beginning at the Wilmot border on the west, traveling to the Cochise County line on the east, and bounded by both the Rincon Mountains and the Santa Rita Mountains on the north and south, respectively. When I began my career in 1995, we had roughly 1,500 students, and our district was small and rural. Today, we serve over 15,500 students in grades pre-K through high school. We are the second largest school district in Pima County, and we are one of the top 25 largest employers in our region, employing over 2,300 staff, most of whom live in our district. There's been one constant in my time in Vail, and that's growth. By every conceivable measure, that is not going to slow down over the next 20 years. The future growth of Pima County, both home growth and economic growth, run directly through our school district. The Southeast region represents 40% of current home permits in all of unincorporated Pima County. This region also represents most of the current and future economic growth in our region, including the U of A Science and Tech Park, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Southeast Employment and Logistics Center, the future Sun Corridor, along with highly attractive state land parcels along the Houghton Corridor and H2K holdings. Current transportation infrastructure, already strained in our region, is without significant investment over the next 20 years if RTA Next is not approved. Over this past week alone, our region has experienced road closures due to horrific accidents and routine track maintenance.
Pardon the interruption. Sorry, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. On the UPS lines, causing hours-long delays and economic detriment in overtime costs to our district. New home growth is critical to the help with affordable housing and our access to that in our region. It's also critical to us who live there. As a dad of adult daughters who've both left Tucson in the need to explore their economic development, our region is the growth region for high-paying jobs in our area. I have deep respect for the work that you do and the work that you are facing. I'm also keenly aware of what is involved in addressing the critical, expansive public needs with limited resources. I simply ask that you support those current RTA projects in our Southeast region, including the Colossal Cave I-10 overpass, the Mac Way expansion, and also the future expansion of the Rita Road I-10 crossing. I also respectfully ask that you move the first 2 projects into the first 10-year phase. Those projects are needed now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Caruth. Up next, we have Alejandro Angel.
Thank you. My name is Alejandro Angel, and I work with SOMAS, but I'm here speaking on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies. Chairman Winfield, members of the board, I know I speak for many members of our community in saying thank you for the time that you and everyone from the TMC sitting in the gallery back there have invested in RTA during the last few months. The effort that has been put into it over that period of time really shows your commitment to the region, given your multiple other obligations. So I do think that all that work has paid off, because today we're a lot closer to having a mechanism for RTA than we did a couple of months ago. I did want to address 2 points. First, as recommended by the TMC on Wednesday this week, we'd like to ask you to please fund the RTA plan for 20 years instead of 10 years. A 10-year task could leave many projects unfinished and limit our ability to deliver and leverage state and federal funds because of the time it takes to build infrastructure. We appreciate the focus on accountability and would offer that instead of going back to the voters to reauthorize a tax after 10 years, we could go back to the voters at 10 years to ask them if they want to continue with the plan that we have, or if they want to amend it due to economic condition changes, growth, or other things that might happen. Secondly, as I look at the options still under consideration, I believe option 3 is the most responsive to regional needs and attractive to our voters. By leveraging the RAC state dollars, we are able to significantly add to the purchasing power of the plan and enhance key elements of it, including more funds for arterial reconstruction and traffic interchanges used by tens of thousands of residents every day. The Rita Road interchange is a great example of a regional need, and Supervisor Caruth spoke about it. In addition to providing access to Rita Ranch, it enhances operations and safety for everyone. If you've been there, you know that traffic backs up onto the freeway every afternoon, creating a safety issue.
1 minute remains.
Thank you. It's also the primary window for access into one of our key economic drivers, that being the U of A Tech Park. So to summarize, please consider 20 years of funding and consider adopting option 3 as proposed, or using the word of the year coined by Director Ortega, option 3 with minor tweaks How you guys doing? The prosperity of our region depends on RTA. Despite the difficult process to get here, we are confident in your commitment to forward a plan to the Board of Supervisors so that all Southern Arizona residents have the opportunity in March to decide our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next up, we have Jim Tucker.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. My name is Jim Tucker. I'm the Fire Chief for Rincon Valley Fire District. I've been working for Rincon Valley Fire District for approximately 20 years now, and there's been a significant amount of growth in Southeast Pima County. The community that we serve is the Greater Vail area in Southeastern Pima County. We currently have 2 fire stations out there, and we have a relatively small fire district of about 42 square miles. Over the past 5 years, we've had year after year increases in our emergency incidents. I sent a letter with some data on it. Our ambulance transports have increased by 30%. And if you did receive that letter in your packet, the first page of that data shows the increase in motor vehicle collisions that we've had in our area. And I specifically excluded all of our calls that we run on Interstate 10 because I didn't want to muddy the waters with those vehicle collisions. So we went from 26 motor vehicle collisions in our small fire district in 2020, and we've increased that now to 102 in 2024. And we're actually, Phil, we're going to exceed that number again for 2025. Our district's estimated population is over 22,000. Obviously, a higher population is a higher demand on emergency services. Rincon Valley and the Vail CDPs are primary growth corridors. People are drawn to our area because of our top-rated schools, our great views, and kind of that quieter lifestyle that you can't really get with the city of Tucson. The Southeast and unincorporated Southeast Pima County generated 47% of the new housing permits, according to the 2025 land use report submitted to Pima County. And of those, a little over 500 annually are coming into my fire district. We have several major developments going on. We have the Rock and K development that's currently ongoing. That's only built out at approximately 25%. They have some other major projects that are going to be happening. We have another couple of large residential areas that are going to bring another 1,000 homes to our fire district. Growth without matching our roadway infrastructure slows our emergency response times. The congestion on Colossal Cave Road and Marianne Cleveland Way is consistently bad. The Colossal Cave railroad crossing compounds our traffic congestion and our issues. The eastbound Colossal Cave exit on Interstate 10 routinely backs up. My daughter commutes from Tucson into Vail, and she calls me all the time when she's sitting in traffic on the side of I-10 waiting to get onto the exit. It's pretty dangerous.
Mr. Tucker, that is the 3-minute time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Robert Cook.
Greetings, RTA board members. Robert Cook, 5-term member of the Pima County Planning and Zoning Commission. The RTA is in trouble because it failed to adapt. 15 years ago, U of A economists warned of a $500 million shortfall. For a decade, the public asked for common sense adjustments. Both warnings were ignored as the RTA stuck to a rigid plan despite changing realities. Today, the RTA lacks a real vision for a 21st century transportation system. There's no clear plan for the children and grandchildren who will live in that future. Instead, assumptions are treated as certainties when the only certainty is change. Projecting population growth and sales tax revenues with linear models is unrealistic amid climate change, inflation, and shrinking purchasing power. Climate heating is accelerating faster than at any point in Earth's history, with the U.S. suffering nearly $1 trillion in climate damages last year alone. This is as much an economic crisis as an environmental one. Yet PAG, RTA, and allies largely ignored it. missing opportunities in the clean energy transition. Meanwhile, regional growth has slowed and land use patterns are more urban. Tucson residents, majority of the region, provide about 60% of RTA funding and bear at least 70% of the infrastructure burden. Yet PAG RTA still pushes suburban style projects that the public doesn't want. The modern streetcar shows what's possible. $75 million RTA invested and leverage over $4 billion in private investment, millions in tax revenues, thousands of long-term jobs, 1,500 housing units, and 50 new businesses, revitalizing Tucson's core. That's the kind of multiplier effect we should build on. Tucson voters are now asking, what value does the RTA taxing jurisdiction add to Tucson's ability to manage its mobility system, given delays, lost funds, poor planning, and lack of fair representation? Number two, should we trust the RTA to control regional decisions for the next 20 years?
Pardon the
The
interruption.
most
A minute
challenging
remains.
period in our history. The record is troubling. 10 years to complete the Central Tucson Broadway project, 5 years of committee disputes to produce an unpopular draft RTA next plan, millions diverted from urgent road repairs to underfunded widening, a backlog of unfinished RTA projects in Tucson. You will not win Tucson voter support for another 20 years of RTA, and they turn out to the polls more than the rest of the county. We can support a regional road repair and safety plan, a regional transit plan, a regional economic development plan built with real community input. All other road projects should be funded by individual jurisdictions. I appealed to you in 2011 as an RTA CART member. Sticking rigidly to questionable assumptions is a recipe for failure. That warning stands, and this is what I wrote in 2011. It may be folly to rigidly adhere to a plan when assumptions about costs, revenues, growth, and travel preferences remain questionable. It is important to approach the future with eyes wide open.
Thank you,
If
Mr. Cook.
normal
That's time.
doesn't return, I'm almost done. We need alternative strategies for critical public investments. We need flexibility, vision, and the courage to plan for the future, not just extend the past. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Speaker. Next up, Sandy Garrick.
I do have a pass out for the record. Wish it to be recorded.
Thank you, Speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Sandy Garrick. I've lived in the Tucson area for 25 years, raising both my children here. I work for Cottonwood Properties, a local company celebrating 50 years of developing housing, hotels, and commercial opportunities in our beautiful community. I'm also the past president of Arizona Transportation Builders Association, representing them today. And I've spent most of my career in public works, especially transportation and utility infrastructure, including 10 years in local government. And wow, it has been challenging to get where we are today. So thank you to all of you. It's been a tough road, so to speak. You know, Tucson needed RTA 1 and Tucson needs RTA Next to continue growing and thriving. We all know that we need the safe roads, effective connections, expanded bike lanes, transportation services for those with limited mobility, expanded safety elements, sustainable transit options, and cleaner air from reduced congestion. And we also need the tens of thousands of jobs that RTA Next will create. We know that the conditions of roads and infrastructure are major deciding factors for site selectors and businesses. As a matter of fact, as one site selector said at last year's Sun Corridor Leadership Forum, regionalism is key to any success. A single city and county cannot be something to everybody. So if you have that point of view that says, I'm going to go this alone, I'm going to win all these deals that I want, it just doesn't work in the long run. So look at it from a whole. Winning as a region first. Winning as a region, that's our focus, right? That's our goal. And the people who live in every community that you represent need each one of you to consider RTA from a regional perspective. The region, we can't afford to lose 2/3 of transportation funding.
1 minute
more.
remains.
Thank you. Not even for a single year, which would be the minimum if you do not approve a plan. And no plan's ever going to be perfect. We don't expect that because no person is ever perfect. But we need a 20-year, fully funded program, one that completes the RTA 1 projects, that provides adequate funding in each category and benefits every regional partner. And option 3 is a good one. It has been asked whether the engineering and construction industry can deliver RTA Next projects. And the answer is 100%. Absolutely. Yes, the industry can. We're ready. We're here to support and serve the community just like you are. Survey polls have shown that our neighbors are ready to continue supporting regional infrastructure through the RTA. I was a bookworm growing up, and I was fascinated by the life of Helen Keller. And one of her quotes is my favorite to this day. Alone we do so little, together we can do so much. So please work together to approve a fully funded 20-year plan today so that RTA Next can get out to the voters in March of next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next up, we have Eric Schroeder.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Eric Schroeder. I serve as the president of Fidelity National Title here in Southern Arizona. We have 6 locations in the greater Tucson area. We deal with, we provide escrow services and title insurance products for real estate. So with my company and in my role, I do a lot of driving, looking at real estate projects, also visiting offices. I mean, as most people are probably going to agree, our conditions of our roads and the need for new investments in our infrastructure is critical. I mean, I would be confident to say that the need for infrastructure improvement must be addressed immediately to support not only current residents, but if we hope to have future residents, excuse me. I know many people are reluctant to change in general or to invest in this infrastructure. I'm confident that we can retain our small town feel while dealing with the reality that we have over 1 million people living in greater Tucson region today. Without investment in our roads, our economy and our quality of life will suffer. With the new RTA plan, we can take a proactive approach instead of playing catch up and reacting to the challenges that we face. I will concede the plan is not perfect. I know many people are apprehensive about paying taxes, also about ensuring that the projects as promised will be completed. However, I think it's important to note this is an extension of an existing tax and not an ask for a new one. We should have a plan in place with consistent funding that leads to investment in the city and the region. Instead of focusing on negatives or uncertainties, I would encourage the RTA board to move forward with this plan to the voters in March. Our region needs this investment now more than ever. Let's be bold, support this 20-year plan with 20 years of funding to help accomplish these improvements that are desperately needed. I'm confident that our future selves will thank us for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Up next, we have Dr. Denise Bowles.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members, and community partners. My name is Dr. Denise Bowles, and I'm here on behalf of the Greater Vail Chamber of Commerce, and we represent businesses and employers in one of the fastest growing regions. The Vail Chamber of Commerce represents the fastest growing region of Pima County, which includes Vail, Rincon Valley, and Corona de Tucson. Home of more than 70,000 residents, our businesses and families depend on safe, reliable roads to reach jobs, schools, and emergency services. We support fully funded RTA Next for the full 20 years. In the Southeast, growth has moved faster than road capacity. Between 2020 and 2024, nearly half of all new home construction permits in the county were in unincorporated Southeast Pima County. And large developments now underway will bring thousands of more homes. Our main corridor, Colossal Cave Road and Marianne Cleveland Way, are already congested and vulnerable to closures from accidents or maintenance. When these routes are blocked, residents are cut off and emergency responses are slow. We appreciate that RTA Next plans extend Marianne Cleveland Way all the way to Colossal Cave Road. That connection is essential, and we urge you to keep it in the plan exactly as adopted to avoid traffic and bottlenecking at city limits. 20-year funding is the only way to see the full plan through. It allows larger multi-phase projects to be completed without risk of being left half-finished, gives us the ability to match federal grants, and creates stability for jurisdictions to plan construction schedules in the right order. A shorter time frame almost guarantees that high priority, projects will be delayed, cut back, or lose outside funding. We ask that Colossal Cave be scheduled in the first half of the new plan alongside Marianne Cleveland, so these improvements are in place while growth is still happening, not years after demands.
Pardon the interruption. 1 minute remains.
Thank you kindly. Lastly, on behalf of the Greater Vale Chamber of Commerce, thank you for recognizing the importance of these projects and their safety, mobility, and economic growth of the Southeast. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Up next, we have Colleen McCarthy.
Good afternoon. My name is Colleen McCarthy and I live in Oro Valley. I'm here today to encourage support for the proposed regional transportation funding plan and share why I think regional planning is critical and essential. In the mid to late 1980s, I worked for a Fortune 50 company and was tasked with developing and implementing a nationwide commute alternative plan, initially aimed at the 19 sites in the San Francisco Bay Area. As regional transit did not connect, this was extremely difficult, but the program ultimately rolled out nationwide. However, the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake changed the region's perspective on regional planning. This disaster destroyed freeways, bridges, roadways, buildings, and homes. Many of my employees had no way to get to work. Some lost homes, others had their work sites destroyed. And this was before anyone had cell phones or personal computers. The devastation made it clear that the San Francisco Bay Area needed thoughtful regional planning so that moving forward, there would not be this kind of issue again. We were lucky at HP because I had built-in options in case of potential catastrophes. Because of this program's success, I was asked to testify before Congress and later recruited to work for the head of the Santa Clara County Transportation. In retirement, I chose Oro Valley because seeing the lack of regional transit and knowing what aging does, I chose a home where I could walk to the market, restaurants, a pharmacy, a church, and watch the changing light on the Catalina Mountains. But I still drive, so I drive to Tanca Verde for donuts and yarn. I visit my brother-in-law in Green Valley, where we dine outside Tubac. I visit dear friends at the Voyager, take my pets up to a vet in Catalina, show visitors Mount Lemmon, Sabino Canyon, the crazy A-shaped former hotel in Oracle.
Pardon the interruption. 1 minute remains.
That's all?
Oh, you have 1 more minute. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
thank you. We go to the Pima Air and Space Museum and marvel at the Skunk Works programs my dad and uncle secretly worked on. We attend U of A events, visit museums and arboretums, restaurants, and the theater, all regional adventures. I rely on a safe, connected, maintained roadway system that allows me to live my fullest life. Well, we don't have earthquakes here. We do have fires and floods. As this region expands and climate change continues to intensify these issues, how will we as a region meet these challenges? Please vote to approve a fully funded 20-year RTA next plan to be on the March 2026 ballot for all of us who love Pima County and this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. That is all the cards that we had ahead of time. I'll just check in the audience just to make sure. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Mr. Chair, that's all the speakers at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ledford. And I want to express appreciation to those who've taken the time to speak to the board today. Your thoughts are much appreciated. We'll go to the next agenda item, which is RTA Next Plan Development, 2006 RTA Plan Delivery Update. Mr. Ortega will provide presentation. There may be other staff as well. And the purpose of this item is to provide an update to board members on the direction given to staff to develop details around a plan that could be taken to the voters for consideration in March 2026. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the amount of work of the staff, PAG staff, Mr. Ortega, members of the board, members of the Technical Management Committee, many of who are behind us or behind me. And so again, a heartfelt express appreciation for your hard work, as well as Ms. Smith, who are our legal counsel as well. It takes everybody clearly working together to bring a plan like this forward, and I look forward to a good discussion. Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
I neglected to say that Board Member Jose joined us during call to audience virtually, and so I wanted to make the public aware of that. So we have a full board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. So what I thought I'd do today is start off by giving you kind of an overview of some of the things that we've been doing since we last met back in July. And then I'm going to turn it over to the staff for a couple of brief presentations, and then they'll hand it back over to me. And then I'm going to go over what we're referred to as option 2 and option 3. I want to give you a summary of that. I sent you all some information, but I'd like to go over that with you. And then we'll delve into whatever detail and level of detail you like. So as we've gone through the exercise since the July 31 meeting, where you all provided me some guidance in terms of a potential 10-year funding plan, if you will. In that discussion, I also mentioned to you we needed to have a 20-year transportation plan that is required by statute. So even if the funding is less than that, the plan has to be for 20 years. And so the option 2 is that it's a 20-year transportation plan, which if you chose, you could fund for lesser than that. And if you recall, the reason that I honed in on the 10-year funding was it seemed like there was consensus around, let's try that. And so you can do that. And quite frankly, you could do that on both plans. You could go with less than 20 years. When we had this discussion with the TMC, they recommended full funding. They recommended 20 years of funding. We certainly got everybody's attention when we went with 10 years, which is fine. But currently, we are presenting to you 20 years worth of funding, recognizing that you could scale that back if you so choose. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the revenue that we're using as the basis. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that because I don't want there to be any question about what that total is. And just to refresh your memory, what we talked about last time was inflating the 23 projections to $26. So if you remember, the original amount was about 2.46, I believe it was at 2.48. We inflated that projection to $26 and came up with 2.67. We checked that a couple of different ways. We actually looked at the pessimistic projections that were provided by the Eller College, Dr. Hammond, and we inflated those as well. We did a variety of different scenarios, and we came up with very close to the same number. So the new target for us is 2.67 billion, and that's over the course of 20 years. Now, I will tell you that we are challenging a little bit in terms of when the tax starts. That's established by statute, but when it ends. And so one of the things that we're going to be reviewing in the next week is because the statutes allow 20 years of revenue, and that's the way it's worded, but because they force us to start in April, is there an opportunity for us to go until June 30 of 46? That gives us those extra 3 months. You've heard that overlap funding and that we're trying to put that to bed. So we'll be analyzing that a little more in the next week, and we're going to challenge the Department of Revenue on that, at least our interpretation of that. But ultimately, it doesn't make or break the plan. I just wanted to let you know in case you hone in on that. We're on it. We're looking at that, and we'll be going after that conversation here pretty quick. So with that, what I'd like to do is just spend a couple of minutes. I'm going to ask James to present to you just some of the methodology on that 2.67 billion so that you understand it, and then we can move forward, or we can spend as much time. We do have other backup. We do have other information we can provide for you on that. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to James. James.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So as Mr. Ortega stated, we are estimating a collection of about 2.67 billion over 20 years based upon the Eller 2023 projection inflated to $2026. And the reason we needed to do that was because if we stayed strictly with the Eller projection in 2023 dollars, the revenue collections were actually for fiscal year 25 were about $10 million less than the actuals. That was the projection. So obviously that was not a direction we could take. So this is more in line with what we see as a real scenario. And with this target amount, it would provide for about $4 million a month in expenditure rate for just the roadway element in the first decade. In the second decade, that would increase to about $5.5 million a month expenditure rate for the roadway element. Keep in mind this also outside of that provides another $76 million a year or so for transit, rehabilitation, safety, and other categorical expenditures. And then $1 million is also set aside annually for administration. And then the bottom two rows outside of this discussion also would likely provide over $1 billion in STBG and HERF funding over the 20-year period. So that's a quick summary. I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss further. Thank you.
Any questions from board members? Board Member Murphy.
Just a quick question. I know that's tying dollars, $26, upgrading from $23. But I know the last plan, it was the growth model, that missed the mark by a lot. Are you both confident that that has been taken into account, that it's a more reasonable growth model and not just the inflation factor on cost of construction?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take a stab at that and then I'll ask James if he's got any comment. So there's two aspects of that. One was the growth in terms of the value of money, if you will, and what that was looking like and comparing that to the cost. But the second was population growth. And if you remember in the original, the 06 population growth, we were projected to be about 1.4 to 1.5 million people in the region. And we fell short of that. And so as we mentioned during the RMAT conversation, our current projections are 180,000 people through 2050. And so I think that has been tempered quite a bit. Based on that, I think we are still targeting that pessimistic level. So we are not at the baseline or the optimistic level. And I feel confident that even though we've inflated it to the $26 level, we're holding it flat. And if you look at the spreadsheet, you'll see we hold that number flat or that level flat until it intersects that curve and then it starts to go up. So I am confident at this point. And I think that given all of the analysis that we've done various ways, up to and including asking Eller for some help down the road, I think I can confidently recommend it. James, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, Mr. Ortega, Mr. Chair. We also had an economic crisis and a pandemic just outside of a decade of one another. I believe most would agree. Hopefully that's unlikely that would happen in the next 20 years. If you remove those two events, you can see a solid upward trajectory in revenues during the 20-year period. So I would, adding to what Mr. Ortega said, I think we're taking a very conservative approach and also consider the extraordinary circumstances that we had to deal with during the last 20-year period.
Mr. Chairman, what I would also add is knowing that we can also go back to the voter within the time frame, not sooner than 4 years, but before the last 2 years, should that catastrophic event or a couple of events hit us, then I would suggest that we be thinking about going back to the voter and having a conversation, which is what could have happened, in the previous plan, but it leaves us that option. And we now know that, so we're armed with that and it's available to us. Mr. Chair, if I can continue?
You may, but I meant to just check in with the board. The meeting was advertised from 1:30 to 3. Is there anybody that has a hard stop at 3 o'clock? You do have an event? Okay, thank you, Board Member Hernandez. I think it's likely that we'll go over 3 o'clock, but I just want to check in. If we're going to lose the majority, then that would be helpful information. Okay.
I had it down as 2:30.
All right, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping none of the staff raised their hands when you asked that question. So we'll keep moving. And what I'd like to do is talk about some, we'll call them overarching concepts or ideas that are in both plans first, and then we'll get into the plans. As I mentioned, the TMC recommended that the board consider both options 2 and 3. So I'll go over those in a minute, but we're basically discarding any other conversation at this point. Happy to revisit any of them, but at this point, my focus is on option 2 and option 3. So the first piece that's a little different than what we did in the 2006 RTA is we are including arterial rehabilitation money. And that's something that's new. And I want to go over that just for a bit because I think it's important that we talk through what it can do and what the flexibility associated with that is. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim to outline some of the details there, as well as what the recommended funding is for that and how we would distribute that. Then when he turns it back over to me, I'm going to contrast both the option 2 and option 3 with regard to arterial reconstruction. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Manager. Within your packets, we've got a brief description of the arterial and collector roadway pavement preservation or rehabilitation and safety improvements program. In essence, what we're doing is we are tying these improvements to our major streets and routes. Isa, if you go ahead and pull up the map. Arizona Department of Transportation has a established major streets and routes map. It's a functional classification map. We tie ourselves to this, but we also leave ourselves an out because we know that as time goes on, street improvements will change. As new development comes in, we need to be able to refine that plan to the local needs, and we provide options to do that. But as a fallback, we've got the state plan to rely on. It's actually very comprehensive, and we're referring to the arterial road network, which are our largest roadways, as well as our collectors, which still carry a considerable amount of traffic within our community. Obviously excluded from that is the local network, and those are not of regional interest or import. We've also defined what rehabilitation is. What we want to make sure is that we're making a clear distinction between maintenance and major improvements. So what we've done is we've tied it to a minimum functional life of basically determined by an engineering study, look at a 10-year life. We want to keep the work specific to the pavement rehabilitation, but we also have to recognize that with that comes a mandate to do improvements to our collector, or rather our curb access ramps, are basically our ADA infrastructure, which we have a mandate to improve as well when we do road work. So those are tied together. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the funding distribution. Both plans are a little different. The under option number 2, what we're talking about is a distribution that's basically tied to population and our current HERF distribution formulas. There's an exhibit within the staff report that looks at that, and we recognize that these will change over time. So it's based on population. As population grows, we'll make adjustments to that, and as the HERF distribution formula changes, we'll address it as well. With that, we also have a minimum distribution. Each jurisdiction gets at least 1% of the funding. That money can be saved, accumulated, so that when a larger project is needed in a smaller community, they have the resources to do that. The option number 3 has a little different approach. It really focuses on rehabilitation work within the city of Tucson, Pima County, and in South Tucson. It also identifies that there is a likely potential for growth beyond what the pessimistic forecast will yield, and it would allocate those dollars initially to the city of Tucson primarily, up until we hit a 55% split, at which point in time it would then be distributed at a 55-45 distribution between the city and the rest of the region. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Questions for Mr. DeGroot from the board members? Board Member Romero?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is, you've just went through the explanation of both option 2 and option 3, correct? I took a chance to look at what was labeled for us, updated option 3. And what I've heard at the call to the audience is that there is an urgent need because of the current growth in the southeast area, both the city of Tucson and unincorporated area. one of my concerns in looking at the list for the updated option 3 is that it has both Rita Road I-10 interchange and Marianne Cleveland projects. Marianne Cleveland project is slated for the 3rd period of the RTA next, and Rita Road I-10 traffic interchange is slated for the 4th period of the RTA next. Can you, one, tell me what are the dates of the 3rd period and what are the dates of the 4th period? And why we selected, or the TMC voted on keeping them to the 3rd and 4th period versus bringing them up to the 1st or 2nd period because of the current need. So yeah, that'll be the first question. Then I have extra questions for you. No.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can help with some of that. So that's really delving into the detail of option 3. I'm happy to get into that if you'd like at this point and try to answer some of those. So first and foremost, I think recognizing that there are finite dollars and there's a cash flow that is identified. I think it's an opportunity for us to have this discussion. And you brought up a couple of different pieces there, Mayor Romero. I think first of all is how does the RTA money get distributed and how do we address the needs that are out there, if you will. But the second piece is how is the rest of the regional money allocated as well, i.e. the RAC funding or the ADOT money. And so the ADOT money is extremely important there in terms of the completion because the amount of the RTA funding is pretty minuscule, if you will, in comparison to the magnitude of the ADOT funding. And so when you look at the current 5-year transportation plan, we're really going to be into that after the 5th year. So we're in the 6th through 20 for additional money. And then you throw the rest of the RTA projects, and then you just start looking at, okay, how do we address the need region-wide of that ADOT money, which is the RAC funding. So that's the first piece of that. The second piece of that is just capacity within the budget. How do we do, happy to look at some projects sooner than others. We don't disagree. I think everybody would love to be in the 1st period. But there is just, number one, a capacity in terms of dollars, and then also a capacity in terms of just physically getting the work out. Now, I can tell you that the option 3 has $5 million built in for bonding. If the wishes of the board are to accelerate some of those projects, then we would need to really analyze how we could fund those or finance those sooner using the same pot of money, which could reduce the total money available for some of those projects. So happy to try to work through that, but I think it's really a function of, again, capacity of the ADOT funding, regional capacity in terms of just getting those out, and then the budget in terms of just the RTA TPT money.
And can you talk about the 3rd period, 4th period, and when those timelines would fall in a possible RTA next?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Board Member Romero, if you look at the 5-year increments, it would start in 26 and end in 46. So 36 or 37 through 46 would be the second half, if you will. So third period would start in 37. 4th period would start in 41.
What I've noticed in the option 3 proposal, it has some expansion projects in terms of more road and I-10 and the Sonoran corridor. It has Lambert Lane, Thornydale to Rancho Sonora Drive. It just seems to me that I-10 and Rita Road, that it's not about future expansion. It's much more about growth that is happening now. And so for the public to wait until 37 or worse, 43, 45, to be able to receive that investment in Rita Road and I-10 or Marianne Cleveland Way, the expansion it's not future expansion. the build out is now. And so I just question
Understood.
the timing more than anything.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Board Member Romero, so keep in mind, I'm not in disagreement with you in terms of the timing for any of these projects. I think that they're all worthy of consideration as we go forward. The piece that'll be important, though, is keeping in mind that this is the RTA funding. This is not the ADOT funding. This is not the RAC funding. And so when you look at a project development that takes 5 years or more, which most of them will take between probably 5 and 7, even 8 years, there's planning money up front. And so I can see a scenario where after the 5 or even 6 years that are currently planned, and I'll even use the term program from the ADOT funding, that we would start to see planning and design money for some of the projects that you just outlined, so that they are in the hopper and ready to go as soon as that third or fourth period is coming. So just keep in mind that this is the ADOT, or excuse me, the RTA money, but there's other dollars that I would suggest we could consider for that project development up front. And so all of a sudden, we are shortening the time as opposed to waiting until 31 or 37 to start. No, we started sooner than that, so that when the RTA money is now necessary, it's truly for some of the bigger parts of the implementation versus the planning and the design that can be done earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Maxwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Mayor Romero. I 100% agree with you. And there was 2 TIs that were added, Moore Road interchange. And if you take a look at the option 3, you'll see that in 1 and 2, Cretero Road's the first one out the chute from Marana. They've redone their assessment of what's their priorities and they've moved it down. If you also take a look at all of these plans, the 2 other projects on these sides are in the 3rd and 4th period for all of the plans. So it was one that just wasn't changed. It wasn't put there. Those were the 2 additions, and that's why they stick out. Some of the concept behind when we take an opportunity to leverage these RAC dollars is in the conversations with the ADOT folks in the South Central District who have been incredibly helpful in the last several weeks. They know they need to do a DRC for the east side of Interstate 10. And when city staff came and said, we'd like to add Rita Road in there, by putting it later in the program, it allows ADOT to do that DRC, which will take a look at Rita Road, Houghton, all of the TIs out to the east, and determine what they believe the best order to accomplish those are. And then that is one of those things as we go further in this program. Something we didn't do in the RTA 1 is take a periodic look every 4 or 5 years. And if the priority becomes, hey, Rita's not what we want, because until the DRC's there, I'm not sure that's everybody say Rita's better than Houghton or better than, Colossal, any of the other ones out there. If we actually start looking at this every 4 years before we enter that next period, we have the option to move things around. And it's not a substantial change. It's just a reprioritization among the current plans on there. So it was not done putting off that east side, because I can tell you on the State Transportation Board's chairman or member Cyril reminded me all the time, don't forget about the east side, because the folks out in Cochise that come into our community, they need it. They see it. And anybody, and I drive to that side of town pretty frequently, that morning drive we heard about backs right up on the freeway. So it's absolutely got to be a priority of our region. That was what I would call a coincidental placement because of the DRC, and in talking, I mean, that was added in the last week. So that's what I'd say is why I was there. And I talked to City Manager Tamir about it, and it gave a lot of flexibility. But I do think we're going to see more movement. That's one of the things when we get to talking about these plans, there is more opportunities to move things around in the plans without making a big change.
Well, and I think that flexibility piece that was not included in the RTA 1 is going to be very important for future boards because of the need. Right, whatever the needs that are happening. One of the limitations of the first RTA is that there wasn't language on the ballot, basically explaining like these are projections, and reality is very different than the projections that are put there. So I think that adding flexibility language for future boards to be able to say, look, there's a greater need over here and we need to move as quickly as possible. If we can do that, I think that would be good. And taking it from a person that sits on the ADOT board, I appreciate the input, your input and your not and the shared knowledge. I know, as a matter of fact, I don't know if an ADOT representative is here, but I know that, well, besides a board member, to talk about how they're handling Interstate 10 headed east. I know that we're doing Keno Parkway interchange. I know that there's interest in moving forward from South 6th Avenue in terms of how we handle Benson Highway and Park Avenue. But the congestion right there, I know one of the speakers that called to the audience said, my daughter has been sitting, on I-10 headed east. That happens every day, and it starts happening at 3 p.m. From South 6th Avenue all the way to Houghton Road or further. And so those are the concerns that I have in terms of the priorities and how we move forward with the needs that are happening right now and the future needs for expansion.
Board Member Maxwell.
Just to follow up on that, Mayor Merrill, you're absolutely right. And what I can tell you about right now in the RAC funding, this does leverage the option 3 will leverage those funds, but it's actually a reduction of almost $80 million from the funds when compared to SR 210. So it's actually a reduction on the total number of RAC funds that are being used. Currently, the RAC funds are forecast. You talked about Keno to Country Club. They've got forecasts for in this what we would call the first 5-year period to do Alvernon to Valencia. So the widening in that part to move forward. So that money's there. They do have in their plans conversations about 6th Avenue and Park Avenue, as a matter of fact. And those were ones that's some of the flexibility I think we've got in some of the, even inside the RTA is to do. I know some folks have talked about what if they change priorities on their roads? Can they do like type changes? Again, I think with the help of the legal opinion on what we can and can't change, I think just putting that extra language in there for the discussion will help significantly.
And then just for clarity purposes, the same thing with Marianne Cleveland Way, that is scheduled for the 3rd period, and that seems to be a need that is very right now, like, the investment in infrastructure on Marianne Cleveland is important. Would the same be in terms of the flexibility to move ahead if the need were to arise and the teams both on the city of Tucson and the county side would be prepared to move forward? What type of flexibility is attached to a project like Marianne Cleveland?
Chairman, so a few things. First of all, what I would suggest is that going forward, as a minimum, the PAG Regional Council weigh in on an annual basis during the development of the TIP on the ADOT 5-year plan. I think it's almost been I hate to use the word rubber stamp, but it's really not been a focal point. And I think you can see with this discussion how important that funding is to the region. And we certainly take into account ADOT opinion and ADOT thoughts, but ultimately it's the regional money and it's the opportunity for the region to identify what those priorities are going forward. Now, the difficulty in that is the 5-year plan is a 5-year plan, and that's really the horizon, the planning horizon. What I'm going to suggest and be pushing for is that we are looking at a 20-year plan, or at least an understanding of what those ADOT dollars are beyond that 5-year plan, which is a little different than what we've done in the past, but I think it gives us an opportunity to then answer the questions that are received from the public as to how those dollars are put forth. Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and answer Board Member Romero's question about the flexibility. I think flexibility is really a function. There's 2 parts to that. And what I hear you suggesting is flexibility to move projects up And I think there's always that opportunity depending on revenues and budgets and those kinds of things. What we have to be careful is when we change scope. Now, as I've learned in the last 30 days, there's opportunity to do that, and there's a process for that. But at this point, we've tried to make the descriptions as open as possible, but still conveying specificity enough so that the voter understands exactly what we're doing. And so that's what we're up to at this point. If we see a need for a scope change down the road, then there's a conversation around that, and there's a process for that. As far as moving the projects up, that's just going to be a function of the constraints of the dollars that are available. And it could very well be that we have conversations around moving different projects. If one's not ready to go and others are, we can have a conversation around getting some of those other projects accomplished sooner.
And then just for the record, and I'm almost done, I promise you, on this particular issue. So just for the record, it looks like period 2 starts in 2032 and period 3 starts in 2037. And my question is regarding Marianne Cleveland. It's slated for period 3, which is 2037, which would be 10 years from now.
That's correct.
And so that's a big ask for waiting for investment for a project in Macway to the people that are there right now. And so I'm just bringing it up because it concerns me. And then just for clarity on the RTA 1 projects, would those RTA, and I'm looking at the list, Tangerine, Silver Bell, First Avenue, both in the county and the city, UPR, Union Pacific Railroad at Grant, and then all of the first RTA projects, would those be slated for period 1? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's a great segue to continuing down the list here, because RTA 1 in both plans is fully funded, and it really is funded upfront in the first period. I'm going to say the first period, although really realistically it's more the first 2 periods, just a matter of accumulating cash. But the focus is on completion 100% of the RTA 1 and fully funding that. And I think the difference between the 2 plans is how the dollars are allocated for it. And so I can go over that very quickly. In option 2, the dollars, it's the full 495 million is allocated to completion of RTA 1. So just so that you're clear, that's basically all of the dollars that are shortfall. There's a shortfall for is take it out of the TPT. It's option 2. Okay. Option 3 splits that. Part of it comes from the new tax, the TPT. Part of it comes from the regional money or the PAG funding. Just to give you the numbers, about 263 million would come from the new tax, the new TPT, and about 237 million would come from the regional money or the PAG funding. Okay, and so that's I want to call it the significant difference in how the RTA 1 projects are completed. But to your point, Board Member Romero, they are completed in right out of the chute. So as quickly as we can. Supervisor Board Member Hines asked how long. I'm estimating 7 to 8 years. That's really the opportunity to get all of those projects out the door and completed. Okay.
Board Member Murphy had a.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions. Agree with both colleagues to my right, having that flexibility in there, which I know is going to be a policy discussion later. And as an example of that, when I heard the word UP, that always gives me shivers on the speed. So if that's part of an RTA 1 completion and the city runs into a problem, for example, would that be, with the flexibility with the policies, an opportunity for the city to be able to say, okay, be under control, we're stuck. Let's talk about, accelerating Marianne Cleveland Way or one of those types of things. So I just wanted to, clarify that if we have that policy, that flexibility, if something gets tied up, then that conversation can take place with the board to try to move one of these other projects that may be slated for 3 or 4 up a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Murphy, that's the spirit and intent of what we're trying to do. I've got to figure out how to put the language together so that it makes sense and it can be presented to the voter so that it's not like a switcheroo, if you will.
Right.
There's a conversation around this project's not ready to go, and so we're going to use the money for this project. However, the entirety or the confines of the plan still has to be delivered.
Correct.
And so I'll work with Lisa Ann. We'll come up with some language that will give us that opportunity for the board to make a policy decision, and we'll also include that in our admin code so that there's that opportunity going forward.
Great.
That's the
And
intent.
the second question was the rehabilitation. You know, my preference is option 3 as a whole, but I like the part about rehabilitation that it gets spread. But just to clarify, because I know we're dealing with pessimistic numbers and outside of a pandemic and Great Recession again, we're probably going to hit above that. Again, just to clarify, and if we do, or when we do, then the rehabilitation would be sprinkled amongst all the municipalities. Is that correct?
That, Mr. Chair, Board Member Murphy, that is correct. Let me just jump to that so that we're clear. So in option 2, as Jim mentioned earlier, the distribution is based on population and HERF. It's 50-50. Quite frankly, the reason we chose 50-50, that's my recommendation, is because it's kind of the best of both worlds. But each of those numbers can be adjusted annually based on distributions from the state, based on population figures, which I think you had mentioned last time, Board Member. And my suggestion is that we can settle those up annually. So we get that information, and then we can settle those up on an annual basis. So I think that makes it pretty easy. As Jim mentioned, it is a 1% for the Pasquayaki, the Tono Nation, and South Tucson. So that's right off the top. Whatever it is, 1%, those dollars go to you for that purpose out of the chute, and the rest of it's distributed on the 50-50 basis. That's option 2. Option 3, basically, and I'm going to read these because it's easier, takes the 177.6 million and it distributes it again across the region. And these are the distributions that were included in your spreadsheet. They're option 3, but they're the attachment to option 3 that has the distribution. So Tucson would receive 139.6 million or 78.6%. Pima County would receive 10 million or 5.63%. Marana would receive 5 million. Marana, Oro Valley, Sahuarita, and the Tohono O'odham Nation would receive 5 million at 2.82%. South Tucson would receive 8 million at 4.5%, and the Pasquayaki tribe is not included at this time. That's the distribution of the arterial reconstruction. Again, when I'm also suggesting you consider collectors as well in that. You heard the presentation. And so that really is the differentiation of the difference between the two distribution, and then there's a dollar amount that's also different there as well.
Mr. Ortega, Mr. DeGrood, you mentioned there was a 10-year, what was the 10 years about in terms, was that the age of the road that would be a criteria before?
Mr. Chair, we're looking with rehabilitation. What we wanted to do is make sure that the nature of the rehabilitation work was substantial. By that, I mean, it has a useful life of at least 10 years. That would, we wouldn't be talking about chip seals or slurry seals. We'd want something that's substantive and a real reconstruction or real rehabilitation of the roadway.
Thanks for the clarification.
So, Mr. Chair, you have a question.
Board Member Hines?
I can let the Executive Director finish his thoughts.
Thank you, sir. So continuing down, both plans are 20-year horizon. I mentioned that. Both plans at this point have a 20-year funding cycle or funding scenario that's in the plan. Both plans would request of the voter a substantial change, approval of the substantial change. Both plans would request of the voter rescoping. At this point, we've identified 5 projects. You've heard me say 4 to 5. There's actually 6 that we're looking at. I'm going to just tell you what they are quickly. 22nd Street west to I-10, Houghton Road north to Tanque Verde, Silver Bell north to Ina, North First Avenue River to Orange Grove, the other North First Avenue, which you previously gave direction on, which is within the city, North First Grant to River. I'm suggesting that only because there was a question about that. And if we're going to go to the voter, let's just take that as well. I think that would be a good direction. And then possibly the Grant Road underpass at the UP. And the reason we haven't finished that or finalized that is I know that the city of Tucson and the Pascuariaqui are having conversations around what that scope will be. My suggestion and my expectation is that when we get together next, there will be language there for a rescoping that hopefully we can all get behind, and then we're off to the races. So the ballot language on both plans would include those more than likely 6 projects. I already mentioned it completes RTA 1 or the pieces of the 2006. I do want to make a note though, because I think there's a question about what completion means. Keep in mind that even though we're completing what we call the roadway element, it's rescoped. It's a rescoped element. It's not the same element that was established back in 2006. And that's important because it isn't when people say, well, but you're only focusing here. Yes, but it's rescoped. And that reduces those costs. We went through that in previous meetings where we went through what those dollars really look like. But I wanted to point that out. It did both plans continue transit operations beyond June 30 of 2026. And both plans contain wildlife linkages funded at $50 million. So when you get into the plans themselves, I'll quickly go over these. Option 2, as I mentioned, has $495 million that's allocated out of the TPT for completion of the 2006 RTA plan. $740 million would be allocated to arterial and collector reconstruction and safety. So keep that in mind that we did put in a component based on feedback from the TMC that we include flexibility in option 2 if the board decides to do that for safety improvements as well. So that could also be an opportunity there. $700 million for transit operations. That's broken down, $70 million for the high capacity transit component, $40 million for streetcar operations, and $590 million for operations as a whole. I've also outlined and shown in the plan $800 million of regional money. That is, I'm going to use the term artificially capped at $40 million a year. The idea there was to put $40 million a year, up the $800 million over the course of 20 years towards, I'm going to use the term RTA-like projects, but it leaves about $5 million a year of that PAG funding or that regional funding for discussion and redistribution and assignments to project during the course of the 20 years. And so that could be upwards of 100 million. I think that's very conservative. I think it's going to be much higher than that, but it gives you at least an opportunity as a region to program those dollars for non-RTA projects that become important during the year. So back to Mayor Romero's point, it gives some flexibility in terms of how those dollars could be used. So one thing that's not included, I don't believe we put it in writing, but I wanted to point out to you is, I put it in my note, but I don't think we put it on the plan, is should we are staying with the pessimistic level for revenue. Should revenues exceed in option 2, my recommendation is that we put excess revenues up to $100 million in contingency. And the reason for that is because remember the contingency that we talked about here is mostly in the roadway element projects. Well, if we move those to the regional money, that takes the contingency with it. And so we're going to be shy potentially on contingency in the TPT or the rest of the program. And so I'm a little nervous about that. So I'm thinking and suggesting upfront, if we get excess revenue, we put those into the contingency. And my suggestion would be that we go up to 100 million in contingency for that. We can make that decision, or policy can be made in the course of the 20 years. Also, if needed, there's an opportunity to use some of that contingency for bonding in option 2. So should the board decide that they want to pursue that, there's at least an amount of dollars there that can be used for potential bonding going forward. It does include, option 2 does include a small amount for administration. I will tell you that it's small. I will be challenging that and looking hard at that. We've talked about many of the concepts that I've been exploring here. We've been exploring in terms of delivery and facilitation of delivery. I don't have that baked yet, but we will. The bottom line there is that the projects will also share in that burden, if you will, share in that cost burden. And so we'll look hard at that, but I wanted to point that out to you as well. It does address the categorical elements, but in the second half of the plan, except for the wildlife linkages, all the others are in the second half of the plan. So it starts, as Mayor Romero mentioned, and I believe it's 32, 37. 37 through 46 is when those categoricals would be outlined. Option 3 allocates, as I mentioned, about 263 million out of the TPT for completion of the 2006 RTA, about 237 million from the regional money for the first 5 years. The spirit and intent of that is after the first 5 years, those regional dollars would be available to the region for reprogramming or programming as the region sees fit based on the TIP process. And again, I'll say it again, I'm going to suggest that we do an annual TIP process so we can have those discussions very frequently. And I know sometimes that becomes monotonous, but it's a good way to be planning in terms of that 5th year, which then gives us the opportunity to bring in those ADOT dollars and some of the other conversations we're having. The option 3 does allocate about 1.2 billion in roadway element projects. And as Board Member Maxwell mentioned, it does include 2 new projects that were not previously. One of them is the Rita Road interchange. The other is the Moore Road interchange. Both of those are added, although the RAC dollars, actually there's a decrease of about $80 million because of the movement or we'll call it the elimination for now, pushing off of SR 210. And I think that was part of the conversation that we had internally over that. There is 177.6 million in arterial reconstruction. I already went through that distribution, so I won't do that again. There is 726 million for the continuation of transit services. That's an increase from option 2 of about 26 million. That's broken down as the same 70 million for high capacity transit, 40 million for the streetcar operation, and 51 million for safety and security of the transit system.
Mr. Chair, can I just pause?
Sure. Board Member Murphy.
Because I just wanted a little more clarification on the safety perspective. Is that, do you see that as like bus pullouts, or is that, literally like guards on the buses? Could you just expand on what the safety element for that's been added?
Mr. Chairman, I think it can be a combination. It really is an opportunity for us to work with our transit partners and identify how best to improve the safety and security of the transit system as a whole. And so clearly there's a component of the transportation or the traffic piece, but there's also presence and help with some of the security around the bus stops and on the buses. It could be a variety of different things. So what I foresee there is working with our transit subcommittees and our partners and saying, okay, we have this amount of money for safety. What does it look like? And let's talk through what that would entail.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On this scenario, or option 3, should revenues exceed pessimistic, the levels or the targets, that would be a split, 75% to the city of Tucson and 25% to the rest of the region, based on the city or up to the city receiving 55% of the revenue, of the total revenue. That's a conversation that happened a year and a half ago, and that's just still in there. I wanted to make sure that you were clear that that's still included there. The option 3 does address all the categorical elements that were in the original conversations that happened last fall. And then finally and lastly, the option 3 does include administration, including the Main Street piece, overall administration, and debt services, about $5 million in for debt service. Mr. Chairman, happy to answer questions on any of those.
Questions from the board? Board Member Hines?
Thank you. And I too appreciate all the work everyone has been doing on this. But as I'm looking at the kind of the ballot construction as well here, and there's a history of highly complicated policies brought to the voters recently being voted down associated with any assessment whatsoever, especially in the city of Tucson. And we are obligated, according to council, to go to the ballot in November. And there have been many, many changes and modifications and plans and ideas and thoughts in the past few weeks, which I appreciate. But I think this should be, if we want to avoid a disaster in March, we should be looking at November. We should give the CAC an opportunity and the public to come in and robustly review this and give the time necessary that a 20-year plan plus an 8-year kind of makeup plan really requires. So, I mean, all of this sounds great, but I just think it's incredibly important that we not play chicken with regional transportation. So I would like us to consider this is all good, but I think we need more time. I think if we want to avoid a March calamity, we need the public involved way more than they are. I know most of us represent the public. I get that, but I think there needs to be more time for this. This is really important for our future, for the economy. It deserves more than, I feel terrible for the TMC meeting like, what, 3 times a week now? But I think we need to devote the necessary time to get this right. I think the November election will be a time when this, frankly, will be more likely to pass, and it'll be a better overall product. If we can just figure out the nine intervening months, I think that's a better course to move forward. And I don't have a motion, although we should. But I'd love to hear thoughts from my colleagues.
Board Member Murphy?
No, I appreciate the comment. From my perspective, we've been working on this, or I've been working on it for 6 years. I have felt, because I've gone everywhere from optimistic to it's dead to highly optimistic, actually, because all the work, mostly because of the left and behind us. The April timeframe, resonated with me, which I wasn't, aware of before. If we went in November, we still wouldn't be collecting until the following April. We'd still have to have a big transit conversation, right? Because we were going to be sunsetting. We have no money for that. And I've heard from a lot from the business community, especially within the transportation sector. They're excited about what we've done and where we are at this point. So, it's up to the voters. At the end of the day. But I think there's more momentum than we felt in a very long time, and a lot of work has gone into it. So I'd still be in favor of going in March. I just wanted to put that on the table. Thanks.
Other board members? Board Member Valenzuela?
Thank you, everybody. How much of the transit money, if we do go to the November ballot, are we looking at covering?
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Valenzuela, we're in the $32 million range on an annual basis, and that would be, it'll be slightly less than that, but it's in the $32 million range. And I think the difficulty is, from where do we fund that? And as I mentioned to you as a board a couple times, my first meeting and every meeting subsequent to that, I have not been able to identify with surety how we would fund that. And that makes me very nervous for us as a region. That's where I'm at with that.
Also, I know we're on a deadline to send it to the Board of Supervisors, but you're right, there is no public input with this plan, especially with these 2 new projects that no one's really had an opportunity to look into. Can we have an extension, or what's the deadline to take it to the Board of Supervisors?
Chairman, Board Member Valenzuela, so the deadline for the Board of Supervisors to act is, I believe, September 10th. Their next meeting, or before that, would be September 2nd. And that's why the deadline, if you will, for this board was put at August 25th. And so, short of a special meeting on September 10th or 9th, but September 10th, then the September 2nd is the target. Now, with regard to public input and feedback, we can have whatever conversation you'd like to in whatever format you like for us to go out and have that discussion. My expectation is that if you provide direction, then we will immediately embark on developing and bringing back an engagement plan. It is not an engagement plan to solicit feedback necessarily. It will be an education campaign to make sure people understand what's in the plan and how we approached it.
Board Member Murphy.
And one thing I forgot to mention, there has been a robust CAC engagement, very lively, I understand. I wasn't able to go to a lot of those. But there has been a lot of representation for all of our communities. Everybody was represented on there. So and and the framework of this came out of the CAC committee. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record as well. Thank you.
Board Member Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully understand the concern. Anything getting passed in March is going to be a heavy lift. But I'd argue that if you think it's going to be significantly easier in November during a presidential, or not presidential, but a two full party midterm election, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of politics. There is advantages, I think, especially if it's something we're concerned about, as you want it to be in that March thing, because both the no's and the yeses will be able to put the words out there, and it'll be the only topic for people to listen to. I know tends to be reduced turnouts, but I think we've seen that's not always true. There was a large turnout in some off-cycle elections as well. As far as the two projects, Mayor Valenzuela, I agree with you. They are new. A lot of folks may not have seen them. All the people on the TMC had, but those both were requests by the municipalities that added them there. One of them was a significant change of their priorities from Cortero Farm, the Cortero TI, which moved from their number one priority to period 3. The Rita TI was one to address that east side and west side, and it was one that the city of Tucson did come and ask for. So I think of all the things, the ADOT projects, when you're talking to TI, it's a little bit more straightforward because, and I'm not saying they're easy, but they are straightforward because you've got a better idea of the right of ways you need, what the other stuff you want. And the most important thing in this case, you have the two municipalities saying, yeah, we could use those. And if we do this right, we're going to build in flexibility. I mean, nothing prevents us from going back any time during a 20-year cycle to either update if it's deemed a significant change, or to even say, we've got a shortfall, we might need more money, or the good side, because as I've learned, once we know we're going to exceed the amount of money we have, and since we've got the pessimistic numbers, 80% of the time we're going to probably exceed it, we still have to go back and let the voters know. Hey, thank you. You've given us all this extra money. We've got more money to spend. We still have to let them know once we top, I think, the 10% cap. I know Lisa Ann knows it better than we do, but I truly believe for us to say we're going to turn off the cycle of regional transportation money and regional transit money that is going to current operations would just I think it'd be a mistake, my opinion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Romero.
Thank you. I too appreciate the concern about engaging the community, even having, and I mentioned it a couple of meetings ago about bringing the CAC back, the Citizens Advisory Committee back, to have at least a back and forth, right? A few more pairs of eyes in terms of what the RTA board is doing. And so, I mean, here's my violin. I had been asking for a change at the board level in terms of the executive director that we had for many years. Many people know that. But we find ourselves in this reality. That is water under the bridge. And we find ourselves in this reality, the reality of the possibility of getting to April of 2026 and not having an election, with the possibility of losing approximately $32 million a year for the services in terms of our transit system. That doesn't just mean not having $32 million per year, that means cutting routes and letting drivers go. And in terms of paratransit, not servicing disabled community members that heavily rely on our paratransit systems. And so what I have to weigh is what type of options do we have on our hands? For me, option 3 seems to do what my colleagues on the council and I have been requesting would do for the last 4 years, right? It finds a path forward in terms of completing RTA 1 projects. It funds arterial reconstruction. It adds additional funds for transit services. It adds new funds for transit safety investments. It accomplishes many of the goals that Mayor and my colleagues on the council and I have been talking about. It gets us to 55% of the allotted share, which Tucsonans deserve a return on investment. And so, yeah, I mean, it's up in the air, right? Even if we do put it on for a vote, the community will tell us if it's ready or not. But my nervousness is losing incredible investments, $32 million worth of investments for our paratransit and transit systems. Where do we get it from? And, and hearing from Mr. Ortega, not knowing where it will come from, it highly concerns me.
Board Member Hines.
I hear that. I just did the math. So we're talking July 1st, 2026 through March 31st of 2027, potentially. That's $24 million in transit. We have buckets and buckets of money and a lawyer. So I feel like for $24 million, we can figure this out, but the risk of March is too great. That's my point. So I don't want to, I'm not saying transit is insignificant. It is very significant, but we're talking about a $2.7 billion plan. If this fails, it could be years before we can go back to the voters, and then we're super screwed. Sorry. But like, we can figure out the transit bucket together, but we can't figure out what to do if the voters vote this down in March. I'll stop making that appeal, but.
Board Member Maxwell.
I understand the concern. I don't think March to November is going to be a long enough time to make it more likelihood, especially if you're talking about bringing committees back. Took 6+ years of committee. I started on the Citizens Advisory Committee long before I was on this board. That was probably 3 years before I've been on this board for 5. So it's been around for a long time. And yes, we might be able to find the 24 million. If we could all scrape together and probably come up with something. It's not 24 million. We lose 90+ million. That 24 million is the part, and if it's a year, it's 32 million, is the part of the transit dollars. But we use all the rest of the money too. That goes to all the other things that we use it to fund inside the RTA. It's going to stop construction. It's going to stop moving forward on the RTA 1 projects. It's going to stop a lot. And if there were a couple comments made at the TMC that did point out, and they're all here, so they say I say something wrong, but I heard one say, well, we got to start thinking, if this isn't going to happen, we got to start stopping the work on everything, because none of it's equitable. We don't know what we're going to have. Both of these plans, option 2 and option 3, give us a path and a direction to ensure that we have the money. Then we can get back to doing what we need to do regionally on making sure it's getting spent in the right place. And I think that's the whole point of the policy discussion we're going to have. We're going to make the next RTA will have things in the language ensuring more flexibility, and it's going to have memories from people who have sat through this last couple of years saying, we've got to be more flexible, we've got to review, we've got to be willing to make the change. I'll be gone. My term expires next December. So I'll leave it in your hands. Doesn't mean I won't show up at the call of the audience to say, hey, remember what you were saying 2 years ago about flexibility, but that is how you do regionalism. That's how you run a regional system, is with collaboration and cooperation and discussion.
Board Member Murphy and then Board Member Hines.
And just to piggyback off of that, if there is a delay, and not only on transit, but the mayor just, had brought up the length of time for the interchange out east, right? All of that delay pushes those years even further out. Secondly, from my school board days, if you go early March and it fails, I mean, you have to retool, but you do have an opportunity to come back and do something else. If we fail in November, we already had a gap we're building in from that, both transit and otherwise. And then we're still going to have to go out another time later, and that gap only widens. So then the years we're talking 37 and 40, whatever it was, that's even further out from there. So, and again, hearing back from the business community, I know they're embracing, at least, between 2 and 3, and are willing and able to go out and market and push that, which I really appreciate. And General Maxwell at a dinner last night talked about, one, he did a very good job. But secondly, we were going to get to a place where we could polish it a little bit and bring it back. And just let me know, there's a couple of polishing things. I'm listening to Alejandro. He wanted tweaks. I think he requested tweaks. So just let me know when that might be, because one is a clarification. Another one might be a potential tweak. But Mr. Ortega, just whenever you're going through this, just please remember that. Thanks.
Board Member Hines.
All right. The 90 million we're good on, right? We have, again, buckets of money, even without active money coming in. We're okay there in terms of a 9-month gap, right? That's to Mike Ortega, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear that.
Construction will continue, like it's the transit part that we are having trouble exactly identifying how to fund, but the amount that would normally be coming from the TPT, we have that through the reserve fund balance. We have like a bank account. We can continue the construction at its present pace through that 9-month gap, is my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Hines, yes, we have fund balance, which would be used during that time. I think the point is we would forego any revenue that we would have collected otherwise. It just moves the plan back, so we just don't collect the revenue. But yes, we do have fund balance to continue construction.
Okay, well, I guess, and lastly, then I would say it might be more likely to get broad approval and support if we simply do a 5-year thing. Just figure out, revise RTA 1, of course, continue the transit obligations, cover whatever is necessary for the RTA administration, and do that instead in March, because it's a lot smaller, and I think people will be more understanding and likely to pass it that way. And then we could come back with a fuller 20-year plan following that, or even during that period of time.
An option is, but anyway, Board Member Jose, and I meant to recognize Board Member Jose earlier, who's joined us in person. He had joined the meeting virtually. Welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and board members. First of all, Berlin Jose, Chairman of the North Nation. I want to say thank you to everyone that has had a part in developing this plan or these plans. To the public, those here and those that may be listening online. What I did want to say is that, first of all, it's good it's a good day to everyone. We have a job to do. We are all sitting here representing various jurisdictions and so forth. And we either done a good job or we haven't done a good job, or we don't know what we're doing, or just you name it, it's going to be said. But we have a job to do. We got to roll up our sleeves, and we can come to I don't know if there's such a thing called a perfect plan. If there is, please show me. I want to talk to you. But I think what it boils down to is that I believe in my short lifetime, I think, is that, and which we all know, is that communication is key. Communication is key. And when we started to talk about this, and it always appears to me that whenever we're running short on finances, we take it from the people. And we taking from the poor to benefit the rich. Okay, I said it. A tax doesn't discriminate. Once it's imposed, everyone is taxable. And so I think that, and yes, there are various regions that are represented here. There's various entities that worked on this and groups and so forth. Someone somewhere is going to say, I didn't get the memo. I wasn't aware of it. However, I think it is upon us that we should make some effort to provide some public opportunity. If nobody shows up, nobody shows up. We've done our job, right? And I know we're against some timelines here, but I believe that, and at the end of the day, the people, the voters, will decide whether they agree with it or not. But I think going up to that, best practices, we should try to provide some of that public opportunity to be informed. Even though we think we have everybody at the table, if we do that little extra effort, I think it would be beneficial. I always say that 100% is no more acceptable. We got to give 110 and 120%. We got to go above and beyond nowadays. There's so much stuff there. I am concerned about the development of the region. I am concerned about everything that was said about the roadways and the wait times and the congestion and all those things. We're concerned about that. However, my chief concern here again is I think we probably should have just did a little bit of extra effort in communicating to the general public. I mean, at this day and age, there's so many opportunities that we could do that. Technology's at our fingertips here. Not everybody owns a vehicle, but not everybody rides public transportation. Some people bike, some people walk. This is going to affect everybody. Those people that we represent for the Tohono Nation and our 36,000 federally enrolled members live in your jurisdictions and beyond. So I am highly concerned about these issues and all these things that we have in here, we need to get done. My humble opinion is that I believe we just need to give it a little bit extra more effort to inform the concerned. And maybe they're not acting like they're concerned right now, but we represent them. We represent whether that's half a cent text, whether that's a fraction of a cent, we represent those people. We represent those people with jobs, without jobs, and it's gonna have an effect on everyone across the board. So that's my only concern. Well, it's not my only concern. It's my chief concern right now is that I believe there should have been, and we knew, and I get it. We were going through a little bit of rocky situations here. I accept that. But I think we're back on track and we're ready. We've rolled up our sleeves and come to the table and let's get this done. I just think we need to inform the concerned, those that are gonna feel the effects. Some probably won't even notice it. How many people don't even notice what they're taxed on when they go to the store or they go buy something? And I have a tendency of looking at my receipts. I'm like, geez, I paid that much tax. But of course, I was hungry or needed a place to sleep or whatever the situation is. We pay it, right? But I just think, I really believe that we should have been a little bit more better at informing. And I get it, we're here. So, but I also agree that if it gets to the ballot box and it doesn't, then that puts a delay and what could have been. So I think we need to roll up our sleeves a little bit, and however we're going to do that. However we're going to do that is to inform the concern and give them that opportunity. Yes, there's an opportunity, there's a call to the audience here and so forth, but how many people attend these meetings? How many people listen to these meetings? And so, in all due respect, board members, I think that's something that we need to do. However we do it, I think we need to do it because I take my position seriously in representing the people. With or without a title, I will always represent the best interests of the people. Whether you're thrown out them or not, that's just my human nature to look out for those that sometimes feel they're unrepresented. And we're talking about future generations here. We're talking about, and so this is all in that best interest of development and moving forward. And the decisions that we make are going to affect us today, tomorrow, and into the future. But I got to say, I believe there's a lot of work that's been done here. Some of you that have been involved in this for a while. I think that we take it for whatever it's worth. There have been some positive developments on here. There has been a little bit of rockiness on the road. So I think we just need to get better, and I think we need to provide more public information on this, whichever way we're going. But that's my concern. Thank you.
Board Member Post.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say I really appreciated Board Member Murphy's comments because I think that we have all been cycling through this, with optimistic, pessimistic viewpoints on this plan. But I think today we really crossed the line, or not in a bad way, but we've really come to a point where I really feel like we have a plan. I really feel like we have a plan that can benefit the region greatly, and that we really need to make a decision and move forward. And I think we need to make the decision that has us with a March election. I don't feel like we can wait, but I don't disagree. I think that we can still and need to still do some outreach to our community. We can try to schedule something here in the short term, and then there's going to be so much outreach by the members of this board within our own communities. To get this passed, we are going to have to be out there in our communities talking about what we're going to do here. And I think that is appropriate outreach for our community members. And so, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready to entertain a motion or not.
I can certainly entertain a motion.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the updated option 3 with the things that we have talked about here today.
For a March election?
That is correct.
I'll second that.
Second.
Wait,
March 2020.
some clarity for 20 years?
Yes, for 20 years.
Well,
With
option
that
3.
flexibility that we've talked about writing into the plan. See anything? And then make sure that we get as much outreach here before we send it. Maybe we can have something before we go to the Board of Supervisors where we can all attend. And then obviously we're going to be doing outreach in our own communities.
So we have a motion on the table from Board Member Post, seconded by Board Member Murphy. Board Member Hines has left. So we're going to have a discussion about this motion. How about if we take a 10-minute break? Is that all right with everyone? A 10-minute break? So we'll resume at 3:30, a 9-minute break? 3:30.
That's good.
If everyone would please take their seats.
What are you doing? Silicon water staff, you came back. You want me to bed?
We have a quorum. Pardon? Okay, we're going to reconvene. I believe we have a quorum. So thank you. There's a motion on the table made by Chairmember Post, seconded by Chairmember Murphy. The motion is to accept option 3, going forward with the March election. It seemed like there was another element of that motion, but did it?
Flexible 20 years.
20 years. Okay, yeah, with clarification on 20 years. So
I think that was all that was in the motion. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds correct.
All right.
That's what I heard.
So we'll open it up for discussion. If there's questions, yes, Chairman Jose, or Board Member Jose.
I have a question to the motion. In communicating his motion, I also thought I heard something about we can do some communication. I should have wrote it down when I heard him, but can please verify that part in saying that we can provide communication to the people.
We can provide communication.
If we can clarify that, because he made that comment, and my concern is that we can say anything, but are we actually going to do that? So I just wanted to get a clarification when he said that, and yes, we can provide communication out there.
Outreach to the
Yeah.
public.
What does that actually mean? What are we talking about outreach? What is his intent to outreach? I just need a little clarification on that.
Well, okay, so Member Post, do you want to?
Well, certainly, I think that there's opportunity to do something before we send this to the Board of Supervisors. We could either do something online or we could find a place to hold some kind of hearing, although Mayor Romero, I don't know if we'll invite you or not.
We could do it in a very, we could do it in a very modern way. I mean,
There
if
you
I
go.
may, Mr. Chair. I think we should absolutely, now that we've kind of pinpointed an option, I think we should absolutely share it online, make sure that we all have this option as this draft option, right? To make sure that we put it out into our community. Just knowing that there's not a lot of movement available, right? So I feel as though sharing option 3 as it's drafted with the community, putting it online for people to be able to view, review. I had heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, that the TMC is going to, make sure that they polish it up and
We have a meeting August 25th, the board does. So my presumption is that if this is the direction that we give to Mr. Ortega and staff and to TMC, again, there'll be some discussion
Right.
that will add to that tweaking or polishing from this board. But yes, there'll be some refinements between now and August 25th.
And there shouldn't be any reason why not to put it online and share it with the community. This is something that should be a public record and open to the public. And of course, being able to give them some access to giving input. But unfortunately, the plan, there's not a lot of movement possible
Right.
in terms of the plan that we have in front of us, but it should be shared
Yeah.
publicly as much as possible.
Mr. Chairman.
So
It's strictly an informational meeting that we'll offer. And then in my comments, not in my motion, I discussed all of the outreach that we as individuals will have to do in our own communities, which will be substantial. And so I really truly feel like we will be out telling people, we will have to be.
Yeah.
We have no choice. And so I feel like we will engage our community in a way that that helps them feel good about voting for this plan.
Board Member Maxwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a great idea to make sure, one, I think we all have the ability to put the plan out on the line to the folks that we are in communication with. I think especially for the electeds and the tribal chair and the electeds as well. It's a great opportunity. If there was something we were going to do that the public could attend based on, what we've seen recently, I thought the second public hearing that you did virtually, Mayor Romero, was the one where people actually got to learn about everything. And there was a way that they could ask questions and you can do it. But I would suggest if we were going to do anything, and I'd be a willing board participant in that conversation with the public or to sell it, or obviously having the executive director tell it would be good, but we could still all take some roles if that was deemed appropriate without violate any open meeting laws, obviously. But I think that's how you can get the more information out. Chairman Jose, I completely agree with you. It's important that the public knows what this is. And it's important that the voters know what it is, what the people have. We've gotten 8 years of getting input from the community. We did 2,200 plus survey results. We did 7 outreach meetings on what effectively is version 3 with some changes that were incorporated from those outreach meetings. And I can guarantee you, the day after the supervisors put this on the ballot, if it's this plan and we come back on the 25th and forward it to them, there's probably going to be well over 100 meetings between then and the vote. There was over 200 for RTA 1, and they are all over the community. Anybody who's willing to, any campaign for yes or for the no, who's worth their salt, will go anywhere to share what's in the plan. So I do, and I've said lots of times, our most sacred rights are our right to vote, and our most sacred responsibility is to be an informed voter, and that's what we need to do. The folks on the other side of the table will do educational events, a lot of them, I'm presuming, between now and March, and then you're going to have the other possibly 1 or 2 campaigns that are going to be putting the positional thread on it, yes or no on it. But I agree, it's important. And then it's important, I would love nothing more to drive a big turnout in March to see what the people want, because ultimately it's their money.
Board Member Jose?
Chairman of the board and board members, I don't want to get away from the motion, but thank you for that information. I think it is important that we as a board charged with the responsibility for this regional area also put our best foot forward in providing that, because a lot of people don't know that issue. A lot of people don't know what happened before. All they know that it's going to hit them, and so I think there should be, and this can be discussed as we move on, a board member toolbox kit, I don't know what you would call it, but that we're all providing the same information to our respective regions. We're talking about the same thing. We're on board moving forward. So because a lot of people don't know the history, a lot of people aren't going to read all what's in the plan. All they know is they're concerned about they're going to be taxed. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Board Member Romero?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman Jose, for putting such clarity in the conversation. I really appreciate you talking about this history, right, of us. I was telling Ted during the break, I've been sitting here at this table for 6 years and we've seen ups and downs, and I think that today, with option 3 in front of us, is the plan that I've liked the most of all the work that we've done, all the years that we've put into this. And so I appreciate you being so clear, we have to do something. We need to move forward today with an option. That we shouldn't look at inaction as an option. It is not an option. I too care for the infrastructure investment that we need to see in our region. And as Chairman Jose said, if anyone has a perfect plan, please bring it forward, because we've been working on this for, at least for me, for 6 years. And we have to move forward. The gains and the wins that we see with option 3 are continued investments in transit and private transit services. There's a new line item for public, for transit safety investments. There are millions of dollars added, hundreds of millions of dollars added for pavement rehabilitation and modernization investments. That is something that we have been wanting to see in a plan for a long time. The question about 5 years, what I would like to make sure that we write into, and I'm looking at the attorney, that we write into our plan is the possibility of flexibility. Because of the movements and in 20 years of many things happen, as we've seen with the RTA one. I just want to make sure that future mayors and future board members have the flexibility to move things around based on actual numbers and actual needs. And so, you know, I think that we're in a good place. We should get this draft option 3, put it out into the community. It would be wonderful to be able to have time to do a virtual informational meeting. People can give us their opinion. I think that's important. And then come here, and it would be nice to have the TMC give it a last look and polish it up and have it to us August 25th. Like I said, you know, our option should be in action. Our option should be moving forward and making sure that the information is shared with the voters of our region. And I really hope that that voters feel comfortable in passing an option 3. We deserve the investment. Our region deserves investing in. Since I first got elected as a council member back in 2007, I understood the power of public infrastructure investment. Public infrastructure investment leverages private investment. We want a prosperous region where we are investing in ourselves. And so this particular question to the voters of infrastructure is important, and we have to go get it, inform the community what this is about, why it's important, and not just hope that it passes, but hopefully each of us will work hard to pass it. So those are my thoughts, and yeah, I hope that we can take the vote today, and with the goal of having a solidified plan on August the 25th, so we can all start our processes moving forward.
Board Member Murphy?
Thank you. And I think one of the most important components of everything that you mentioned with this plan is the fact that I've always been stubborn in wanting to have RTA 1 completed, and that's at the front end, you know, of this. So it really does give a good message that we completed RTA 1 as we move forward simultaneously on the next. The other thing I was thinking about during the break was, if we go in March, really from a marketing standpoint, it's a continuation. If it sunsets, we are literally asking for a new tax. And I know technically we are asking for a new tax, but it's a continuation. And I always worry about when something sunsets that you have to come out and you're asking for it new. I know Mr. Ortega may address, I don't think these are probably amendments to the motion for the person, member Post for making it. But I know the policy is very important. I think Mr. Ortega said when we were in a sidebar that we could weave, the policies in during the policy polishing period after the agenda item. Also on the language on the Sonoran corridor funding, staff was telling me that if we can clarify it on getting the major streets and routes language in there, then it gives us the ability to get some of the right of way taken care of for future properties. So if Mike, if you wouldn't mind just getting, with our staff, just to clarify that one. And then we did have, as this has been changing over time and 210 going away and moving the interchanges, one of our suggestions will be, we had a significant monies expanding Pima Mine Road to 4 lanes. We've had a lot of activity off of Sahuarita Road now, including a safari that we may get off of Sahuarita Road. So looking at taking some savings from not going to 4 lanes to go to 2 lanes and putting that seed money like Marana and the southeast side did on the Sahuarita interchange, and hopefully working with, ADOT in the future on that. I was hoping that could be part of the polishing when we're going through there, and potentially would actually bring some revenue streams either to the Sonoran corridor or back into the pot. So if you wouldn't mind, Mike, getting with staff, on that. But those are the things I just wanted to put on the table, and excited to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. There's a motion on the table.
Mr. Chair, before you vote, I'd like to.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Chair, members of the board, first of all, thank you for clarifying various pieces of this. So I just want to go through a few things that I think are important. First, flexibility. I'll work with Lisa Ann. We'll come up with whatever language we can to make it as flexible as possible, recognizing the need for specificity, not only because of the statutes, but also what we can convey to the voter. I think that'll be important, and we'll do that. Second, you spent a lot of time talking about communication plan. Mayor Valenzuela asked me to attend her mayor and council meeting on Monday. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that with the rest of you as well. I know, Mayor, Mayor O'Meara, you're talking about this on the 19th. Rest of you, I'm happy to go and have a conversation around this. Assuming that the vote goes forward as the motion and second has proposed, we now have a plan. I can post that online. We can send out a press release. We can do a variety of things that we had not been able to do. So you will see a flurry of activity starting even as early as tomorrow, letting people know that here's our plan and we're moving that forward. We will also update our website and get the website moving quickly and get that updated. It still shows the old public outreach plan, which was, back in the fall. So we'll update that almost immediately and get that going. We will also bring back for your consideration and review an outreach plan on the 25th. So we will actually have an outreach plan in your hand on the 25th so that you can weigh in on that and you'll see what the approach looks like. And that'll just be the staff piece. That doesn't include any other. It's just basically what we plan to do and how we approach this. And our intent is support you in your efforts, because obviously you have your constituency groups that we will look for your guidance on how we do outreach with them. With regard to the TMC, when you say polish it up, really what I heard today, other than what Board Member Murphy mentioned, which those 2 projects, and we'll look at that, is the schedule. And Board Member Romero, you mentioned the schedule and what MacWay look like in those. We can go back to them and have a conversation around the schedule and see how that works. Because of the league conference, which is later next week, it's going to be really tough to get a quorum, but we'll make every effort to do that before the 25th, even if it has to be a virtual meeting. Not ideal, but we'll try to get that done. I wanted to let you know. As far as the policies go, that's the next agenda item, but I'll give you an update on this. I think that we can at least give you a framework and present the policies to you as a part of the 25th meeting, so at least you know the direction. It's a tall order to revise them and have them ready to go, but at least we can give you an update and give you the framework for that so you can weigh in on it, recognizing and understanding that as a part of the entire package, the admin code and the policies will have to be a part of that conversation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer questions on any of that, but that's what I heard from you all, and that's where we're going to go.
Okay, Chair, well, there's Board Member Jose and then Board Member Romero.
Thank you, Chairman. And board members, so I just want to say that I heard something that I think needs to be clarified, or unless we're all aware that that's proper, if we act on this, or that it would be a continuation of the tax. If we don't, it's going to be a new proposed tax. Same thing, just because that would have sunset. I think that's good to, if this moves forward, to make sure that we clarify that, because that is a good talking point for information to the voters, that it's just a continuation of a tax. But I'm not looking for a legal clarification on there, but at some point, and I'm not saying I don't believe that the statement was not correct, but that's good to know that it would be a continuation of a tax. If not, it sunsets, it would be a proposed new tax. Thank you.
Mr. Ortega, you wanted to comment?
Mr. Chairman, just so that there is absolute clarity, we will do that, Chairman Jose. But in addition, the direction for option 3 includes a 20-year tax, and that is the direction. So it would be a continuation of the full 20-year tax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Board Member Romero and then Board Member Hines.
Yeah.
Board Member Romero and then Board Member Hines.
And then also it would be good to have a clarification in terms of ADOT, making sure that we have enough regional money that comes in from ADOT and HERF to be able to ensure the needs of Tucson for I-10 East. I think that would be really helpful to clarify, the availability of ADOT funds and the flexibility of being able to work together, both RTA Next and ADOT, on I-10 East and the interchanges and their priority.
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Romero, so I see two parts to that. The first is I will ask ADOT to provide an update for the board on the current plan and what that looks like. I will also suggest we won't do it before the 25th, but we will embark on a longer term planning, as I outlined for you before, with regard to the regional money. And I will put ADOT on notice that this board and this council will want to see the ADOT plan going forward, and we're going to be pushing for a longer horizon, which I think can then help you in that long-term planning and long-term conversations around those projects. Thank you, Mayor.
Board Member Hines and then Board Member Maxwell.
Thank you. And in part to clarify, it is a new tax, but in law, right? But it's going to be at the same exact rate that it was before. So that's kind of both of those things. But I wonder if perhaps we could discuss I think friendly amendment to this. If revenue projections are exceeded, is there a way to dedicate additional funding for those excess proceeds to transit? Broadly, I don't care specific to it. I just think that would be a really nice idea. I think probably that will come to pass. And remember, like the safety stuff and the wildlife, all of that environmental stuff and transit are not affected by like inflationary pressures the same way that like a road expansion or other projects, more construction heavy projects would be. So it's a good thing from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, and I think it's a smart thing for the region as well.
Board Member Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for clarification on what is documented with the revenues, I don't say excess dollars, but the revenues that come in excess of the pessimistic forecast, to get to that 55% point, it's a 75% split going to the city, 25% that comes to the region. And when we say it comes to the rest of the region, that's here, that gets can make the decisions of where it's going to put. The conversation's been around it going to the RTO rehabilitation because there's so much need in the community, including in unincorporated Pima County, that's there, but nothing prevents after, and by the way, after it hits 55, then it goes to a 55 to the city and the 45 come into the rest of the region. That's really in the board process. It's the money comes to them. Very difficult to put it back into a new project. Doesn't mean it can't happen if it comes in at enough money or if the board wants to identify some projects that they would want to, but that would require going back out to the voter in a situation where we say, hey, the money's coming in excess, we want to add this project. But within the elements themselves, that's one of the reasons we have those elements that aren't defined as in the same specificity as the roadway corridors, because you can add money into those different elements and use it for what's there. And so to answer to your question, that'd be yes. And he is right. It technically by law is a new tax. It's an RTA next tax versus an RTA one tax. However, from this perception of the voters and the ability is the day they vote March 15th, the next morning or when the new tax would take place kicks in, the tax rate's all the same. So it's not a change to the tax rate, but legally defined it as a new tax.
Board Member Murphy.
As the second on the motion, I'd rather not put that specificity on it because I think that flexible the policies that we're going to have in place, I'd like to have those discussions or future council members have those discussions where the need is, when the need is apparent at the time. So I'd reject that from a second.
Just I have for this option 3. Is it correct that PAG regional funds are decoupled from RTA at 2031?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. The PAG dollars, again, the only assumptions you put in is do they come in what they are currently forecast for? Mm-hmm. But on the forecast, they come in on track. All the money will be there to complete all the RTA 1 projects, and then it is decoupled. There's nothing that for a while there, when some people saw some plans floating, there was a 7. Mm-hmm. It's all gone. It's all been removed because we came down so that both plans, mm-hmm. option 2 and option 1, were the same when it came to revenue. It was a $2.67 billion budget. So if everything comes in as it is, then yes, the PAG funds would all be available. To address Mayor Romero's things, for those of you who don't, and even though I'm the ADOC, I didn't really understand the RAC till recently, but it's the Regional Accountability Advisory Committee. And it's the funds that come in from federal sources, from state sources, from others. It's a lot of pulls from a lot of the same pools that our PAG funds come from, and they sit in the different districts. And in the South Central District, and we've got Anthony and Jeremy Moore and the Castellano both sit on the TMC, and they provide input there. It's only a 5-year plan because that's really only the forecast they've got. We always hear it's $150 million. So that's $750 million in every 5-year tranche. But I'll tell you, the current 5-year tranche has about $830 million in it because it's coming in at a higher rate. So 150 is the lowest. The option 3 does take $75 million and give it back to them. They do have their plans and ideas, and that's why I'm aware of the TI at Park and the TI of 6th Avenue when I went and met with them and learned with them. I think the executive director has the right positions. We need to make that conversation also part of the consideration for the board. I'm going to be protective of the ADOT folks. They're doing the right things by saying they want to hold on to it because they feel they know what's best for the thing for the region. But when it comes to the input to the decisions they're making, I think this board absolutely has a role to play in it.
Mr. Ortega?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make one clarification. My math is correct. The first year the regional dollars would be available would be 32. So it's through 31. That's correct. That's correct. So I just want to make sure because I don't want you to be beating on my door, somebody else's door. It's 31. It actually starts in fiscal year 32.
And so fiscal, we're talking state fiscal year. So that's the July to the July.
That's correct.
That's
I just want to make sure we're clear on that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
That gets confusing.
Board Member Murphy.
Thanks for that clarification question. One of the reasons I supported option 3 was that decoupling, along with many other reasons. So I just wanted to put that on the record. And I guess at this point, can I call for the question?
Sure. Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
So the ayes have it.
Six.
6-2. Yeah, yeah, just Board Member Hernandez left. So 6 in favor, 2 opposed. I will move to item 4 of the agenda, which is RTA policies, objectives, and procedures update. Mr. Ortega?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a very short conversation. You had asked for the policies to be part of this ongoing discussion. And we did try to get the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee of the TMC together, lacked a quorum, but we're working through that. I do have some suggested language that we provided as staff to the TMC, and we'll be looking to get some of that information back to you hopefully at the next meeting. I do not expect that the policies will be complete at that point, but as I mentioned earlier, I do believe that we can have a framework for you just at a high level so you can see where we're headed. And then we'll continue to work over time with that policy. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Any questions, comments? Meeting's adjourned.
No hesitation there.
We'll return August 25th.